The election of Donald Trump on Tuesday sent shockwaves through Central and South America and the Caribbean, with questions arising about who might be holding the leash of what remains of the Monroe Doctrine. For more on that, we go to Esteli, Nicaragua, and speak with journalist Stephen Sefton.
First, very briefly, let's talk about, today, Thursday, the Hurricane Rafael passed through Cuba. They've been struggling with the electrical grid there in particular due to the sanctions over the past month or so, and they got it up and running, and now they took another hit.
I don't know what the reports have been in the United States, Don. I understand that they deliberately disconnected the part of the electrical system that was likely to be hit by Hurricane Rafael.
Yes, and also I don't know this from the reports, but I know this from what I know about the grid. Some of the recent additions and the supplementals to the grid, because again, this is heavily impacted by U.S. sanctions. Major parts of the infrastructure nobody can sell it to them. Turkey had some ships offshore that were generating electricity, and I'm assuming that those that were in the target area of the hurricane were moved out in advance, so they didn't suffer any damage, and they would take a day or two to return and be connected.
Yeah, we can certainly expect the Cuban authorities and all their technicians to have taken all the precautionary measures that are possible, and also that they'll work very quickly and efficiently round the clock to reestablish normal life for people in the part of Cuba affected, which is the western part of Cuba. But it's just another terrible blow and another terrible destructive blow to the Cuban economy at a time when they're struggling to overcome the effects of the sanctions, which are likely to be even reinforced under the incoming Trump administration.
Yeah, who knows? I will give a eyewitness report, as I'm going to be in Cuba starting on this coming Sunday.
Right.
So, let's move to Trump. You mentioned Trump's election. Let's move right to that, and particularly the implications of that for the region.
Yeah, I'm here in Latin America, Central and South America, and the Caribbean. For decades, United States policy in the region has been essentially the same, very little change. The Monroe Doctrine, pretty much alive and kicking under whatever U.S. government administration is currently in office. And so little is likely to change apart from tweaks here and there under a Trump administration. But in terms of the two biggest countries, for example, Brazil and Mexico, there are some wrinkles and aspects to their relationship with the Trump administration that are likely to affect them more significantly than other countries. So, for example, and Mexico has a population of 127 million. I think Brazil's population is something around 240 million, something like that. So they're very big, important countries for the region. In terms of Mexico, is going to probably find that Trump is more difficult to deal with. A Trump administration is more difficult to deal with than even the difficulties that they've had with the Biden administration. For various reasons, in particular, obviously, because Mexico is a member of the so-called TMEC free trade agreement, and they're trying to defend their under Claudia Sheinbaum. She's going to continue the process initiated by Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador of defending national essential businesses like the oil industry, like the electricity industry. They're going to have probably increasing conflict with a Trump administration over genetically manipulated maize, which is something that they were in conflict with the Biden administration about. And then generally, Mexico is going to be extremely firm in defending its national sovereignty against constant U.S. interference. And also, there's obviously the issue of migration, which Trump has said he's going to be much firmer about, much tougher about, whatever that means, especially with regards to Mexico. And then, so that's what we can expect in terms of Mexico-US relations. Those are the issues that are probably going to be the most prominent. And in the case of Brazil, President Lula has taken some extraordinarily stupid decisions, in my opinion, over the last few months. And one of them was to make very clear that he supported the Harris candidacy, made that very clear during the election campaign. And the other thing that he's done, of course, is he took the decision to veto the entry of Venezuela into BRICS at the recent Kazan summit in Russia, the BRICS summit there. And so, but that was very much in tune with what the Democrat Party leadership in the United States wanted him to do. And many people here in Latin America see Lula as a prisoner of his very, very close relationship with the leadership of the Democrat Party, who are essentially the people that got him out of jail in order to become a candidate. And they wanted him to defeat Bolsonaro, and they achieved that. But now they have, Brazil is faced with a Trump administration that they've always been hostile to in the past, in the first administration by Donald Trump. And whereas Bolsonaro, the extreme right-wing political leader and former president of Brazil, he had a very, very good relationship with Donald Trump.
Right.
So, what we're likely to see is that the Democrat Party will continue to use Lula da Silva as a proxy for trying to push their version of U.S. foreign policy in the region against what Donald Trump might want to try and initiate, the kinds of relations that he might want to initiate vis-a-vis Brazil in his once he takes office again. So we're likely to find that Brazil's relationships with the United States are probably at a superficial level are likely to be more conflictive because their fundamental interests remain very much in harmony.
So, there's something here that's interesting to me. One of the things that Trump was banging, his shoe on the table about was a planned Chinese automobile plant that would have been the largest one in the universe or something, how he uses hyperbole, that would target the American market with cheap cars. And he, refers basically to him telling China or it was going to be situated in Mexico. And that him telling Mexico and or China, if you do, then we're going to put a tariff on those cars that'll make them not competitive. And so it wasn't built. In other words, him looking at Mexico not just as part of the Monroe Doctrine turf, but as a gateway into the United States for China, as he's gearing up for competition, economic competition with China. On the other hand, with the BRICS, even though Bolsonaro was elected and he and Trump had, a working relationship, Brazil didn't pull out of the BRICS when Bolsonaro was president, which was kind of a surprise to me anyway, and I think to both of us. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all gets moshed together, because you have the national bourgeoisie and the international bourgeoisie in Brazil and in the United States, and I think that maybe Trump represents a good part of the national bourgeoisie here. I don't know if that's true. It's my suspicion. And I suspect Bolsonaro also, that's where his support came from.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And and I think you're right. And thank you for reminding me about the issue of China, because in the relations of both Brazil and Mexico with the United States, China is going to be something that the United States will be lobbying hard to both those countries to prevent the development of more closer relations and especially investment and commercial relations with China. But and you're absolutely right that you may remember as well as I do that in the last election in Brazil, Lula only just squeaked in by something like 1.5 or 2%. It was a very narrow vote. And what does that reflect? That reflects the power struggle within, as you rightly point out, within the Brazilian ruling classes, between those who support their relations with the United States led by the Democrat Party, and those who support their relations with the United States led by the people that support the Republican Party. And I think that's a very valid comment.
We'll see how it all plays out over the next weeks and months. Trump takes office on the 20th of January. He's not really certified as having won the election until January 6th. So we'll see what happens. Thank you so much for your time and for your expertise, and we'll speak with you again.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Don. Thanks for inviting me to talk to you.
Thank you.
For KPFK, I'm Don DeBar.